Do you want to hear some fun paranormal stories? This is a video where I'm going to share many personal and business stories that are some of the strange encounters I've had through the decades as a spiritual medium. People think being a medium is amazing, but I will tell you that it was a deep healing journey to get to where I am today. To blend in and honestly function at places like Disneyland and Costco with what I see and experience has been a journey. I am always on. Here are some of my truths. My friends will watch me when we're out in public and ask me what I see when I look away and I'm watching something that they can't see. Fun times. Because typically, if I'm not saying whatever I'm seeing, I don't want to talk about it. I'm just seeing something. I'm not even registering what I'm seeing. But people love that. They love to watch me in person. I personally avoid funerals, memorials, and wakes if at all possible. I do not have to go there for me or the spirit, and if you see me at one, I'm there for somebody else. Once people know what I see and do, they watch me differently. This happens to me all the time. And some people who are very religious, and I'm not going to call it specific religions, but they like to say, oh, I'm very religious. They'll be like, oh, they're afraid of me. And other people that love what I do will be like, oh my gosh, what are you seeing? What are you thinking? What are you doing? So I try actually not to tell people what I do when they first meet me. So when you first meet somebody, you're like, hi, I'm Lisa, this is what I do. I'm like, hi, I'm Lisa, nice to meet you. I don't ask what they do because I don't want them to ask me what I do. I personally avoid aliens if at all possible. When a client has an alien encounter that I have to help them with, it takes months for them to be totally free, and I could get put on a watch list by that alien. Just thinking about aliens, put yourself in my life, okay? We never want to be there. I have to be very careful with friends. I tend to choose people that let me be a normal person without superpowers, as my clients call them. If I work with someone, they can never truly come into my friend category because they're never quite a friend to me. They're all about what's going on with them, their problems, their situations, and they typically just want free advice outside of work hours. And unfortunately, I have decades of examples of that here. I'm not going to take you there. Hi, I'm Lisa Gornall. I'm a spiritual medium and energy strategist. I feel like what I see and experience is totally normal. It's all I know. I can't remember a time not seeing things differently than most people. And in this video, I'm going to share some strange encounters in my life so far as a medium. Then I'll share a few experiences working as a medium. Please share your comments and questions below as I go through this, and I'll get back to you in the comments. So let's dive into some of my personal strange encounters that have made me a stronger medium. The first time I realized I was seeing spirits was with a paranormal investigator. I was, I think, 10 years old, and I had no idea, even though I had seen my uncle, the day he passed, and I had seen him after, whatever, I had no idea that I was seeing spirits. When I saw my great aunt next door's husband, I didn't understand that was a spirit. So this paranormal investigator came to the house, and she was putting a spirit into the light. She didn't even describe to us what the spirit was. I just saw what she was doing, and I saw her put the spirit into the light, and I was like, wow, I can see it too. And then in that moment, it was like, my brain was categorizing and recognizing every time that I had seen a spirit in my life before that. It was a pretty weird trip for me. And then, like I said, I saw my uncle all day the day that he died. I had all these memories. I'm from Cleveland. We would go to Cedar Point. We would go to the Cleveland Zoo. We would do all these fun things with him. And that day that he died, it was the 4th of July, I was seeing all these memories of him. And he kept coming to me, and I kept seeing him. And then we found out that he passed the next day. And my grandmother was obviously devastated. And I actually told my mom that I was seeing my uncle, and she told my grandma. And then my grandma was able to see him out on her back porch a few days later, and that brought her a ton of peace, and that was really good. I originally wanted to be a nurse. I didn't understand that when I picked the nursing path that it was me seeing a past life. And I remember being in my first nursing class ever thinking, if I fail anything in here, I'm out of here. Because they make nursing school hard for a reason. People are making life or death decisions all the time. But I didn't understand that when I was in 6th grade and they said, what do you want to be when you grow up? I saw a past life of myself, and I didn't know it was a past life. I saw a Red Cross truck, and I saw me there, and I saw me trying to get over to Europe to find my husband who was in the military, and I left my kids behind. That's not what people think when they think, what do you want to be when you grow up, right? That's what I thought, right? And then I thought, wow, I want to be a nurse, and I have these abilities with spirits and energy. Maybe I should be a hospice nurse. And so I did as much hospice nursing as I could in nursing school. Nursing school was an interesting time for me, right? Being in old hospitals in Columbus and Ohio, I saw a lot of strange things. I could see like nooses in the ceilings, from where people were hung. I could see a lot of spirits just hanging out. I saw a lot of things. Even when people would like have heart conditions, they'd be like, oh, my heart hurts, my heart's been hurting, like I have all these things, my chest hurts, I have this chest pain. Well, what's going on in your life, right? I remember sitting on the bed with my patient, which is a big no-no for all my nurses out there, and I was giving him 20 pills for his issues. We'll just keep it at that. And I was like, what's going on in your life? And he's like, my son doesn't talk to me. Like, why doesn't your son talk to you? And we just started walking through and talking through all that. And that was the beginning of me realizing I was not on my right path. And so I'm glad that I went to the nursing school. I have that knowledge, and I take that with me now because, a lot of people have health issues and health things coming up. But I'm definitely where I'm supposed to be now. I also had an energy that was attached to me in my bathroom. Both my kids were born at this time. I think my youngest was 2. She's 19, so this was about 17 years ago. And one of the biggest things that I help people with is clearing negative energies. And I just had this negative energy that just kept like being in front of me wherever I turned, wherever I went. And I was like, what's happening? What's going on? And so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go take a shower. And so I went into my bathroom. All the windows were closed. The air conditioning wasn't on. The heat wasn't on. It was summertime. But it was cool. San Diego gets cool at night. And I just lit 2 candles. One was over by the sink, and one was right on the outside of the glass of the shower. And as I was taking a shower, I was talking to the energy, and I was telling it, I no longer need your help. It is time for you to go. And it kept getting stronger and more intense and more angry, like they do. But someone was attached to me, so it's different than what I normally do. And I was like, I no longer need your help. It is time for you to go. And like, I really stood in my power, and I got all of its roots out, and I was pushing it away, and it blew out my bathroom candle. So now I'm in this very dark bathroom, big bathroom, dark bathroom. And after that, I was never afraid of an energy again. Once I got rid of this big, huge thing, and this energy was specifically something that I attached to me when I was 2. I was in my basement in a suburb of Cleveland, Ohio, and I was by the washer and dryer, and I remember like it had these big teeth, and like I was scared, and I was like, shh. And like I let it attach to me, and it was attached to me for 25 years. So if it can happen to me, it's happening to everybody else out there. The last funeral that I went to was my aunt's father's. It was a Greek funeral. I think that's Orthodox. And I kind of felt weird walking in because everybody was kind of looking at me to see, like, what's the medium going to do? What's she going to say? And I was really keeping to myself because I know that not everybody there is a fan of mediums, right? And I just went to, the head, and I just stood there for a second, and he said loud and clear, I heard his voice so loud, like he was right in my ear, isn't everything beautiful? And I was like, I'm glad that you're happy here. Like, because I'm not sad for him. I know that it was his time. He was in his 90s. He was, he loved his wife and his kids and his family, but it was time for him to go. And as soon as I turned around to walk away, my aunt's like, my mom wants to know what he said to you. And it still brings tears to my eyes this day. Because when I told her that, she just started bawling, right? Because it was, what she wanted for him, but it was also a very charged emotional situation. And that's why, like I said at the beginning, like I try not to go to a funeral. If you see me at a funeral or a wake or a memorial, it's literally because I had to be there. Something interesting about when I started having children, I didn't really speak to my first daughter for months when we were alone together. I communicated with her telepathically until I realized, that's not going to help her. We were in rhythm with each other. We were able just to speak to each other. We didn't need words. And like I said, I worked around my husband's schedule. Like, so somebody was always home with her. And so I realized, like, I need to start using words and speaking with her. Don't worry, she's 21, she speaks well, life is good. But I didn't use words with her because I didn't need to. Another thing about my girls is that I know when they're going to get in a car accident. I just have this weird feeling. I haven't had it in a while, so that's good. But when they first both started driving, like I would just have this really bad feeling, like something was going to happen to them in the car. I literally, for my daughter, I put her car in white light, and her car got in an accident that day. It's just, there was no way for me to prevent it. It wasn't my situation or my experience, but I knew it was going to happen, and then it happened. And then it's funny because I tell my kids all the time, this is going to happen, or this is going to happen, or whatever. And I think that most of the time they just kind of ignore me because it's just what I do. And then when it happens, they're just kind of like, well, you told me this was going to happen, or I didn't believe you when you said this was going to happen, or they just ignore me. A lot of ignoring happens here. My daughter's actually in the room with me right now, but I put this in here anyhow. I know how my daughter's relationships are always going to turn out. It's a very big sticky point in my household. It's very difficult for me when they meet somebody because I already know how it's going to go. And I'll try to go out of my way to be nice to them, but then my daughters share that information with them, and it creates all these issues and all these problems. But I just know, I read energy for a living. That's who I am. That's what I'm here to do. So I'm really fun to be their mom. I've actually had a lot of intellectual property theft. Most recently, someone stole one of the names of my biggest trainings. The crazy thing is that she put a block on me, and I didn't even notice it because why would I? Work with her once in a group call, and she literally took my training name, and when it came back to me, like, hey, this person's using your words, I was like, who is that? I never worked with that person. I don't know that person. And then the person that was telling me was like, yes, you did. She was in this call with you on this day. Like, here's her picture, here's her website. I was like, then the fog like started to lift, and I was like, oh, I did, but I didn't remember her. But people can put energy on us, and we get to decide if we take it or if we don't. And I didn't care one way or the other, so apparently I let this come on. But then once I was aware of all of this, and I sent out a message to her, which, you know, then she blocked me everywhere. I said, hey, you're using my thing, blah, blah, blah. She tried to put a curse on me at 2 a.m. when I was sleeping. And I literally felt the energy come in over my body. And I was like, no, in my sleep this is happening. And I was like, no. And I just dissolved it and gave the energy back to her without ever waking. So even though she was able to make me not realize that it was happening in the first place, like that she was taking my intellectual property, I was able to become aware of it and be like, oh, no, I see what you're trying to do. So that was a fun experience. And then here are some of my working strange encounters that have also made me a stronger medium. I had a client deep dive me into his alien encounter, and it took me 2 hours to get him out of it. It was so dark. When you think about aliens, and there's a lot of stuff with aliens, you know, coming out, like, you know, sightings and stuff like that. But when you think about aliens, like, they kind of use us like puppets most of the time. And so, like, we're fun for them to play with. Think of it that way. And so they just took him down this rabbit hole, and it took 2 hours, and I just try not to deal with it. So if you go onto my website, you're not going to see anything about aliens. I try not to deal with it if at all possible. And again, right. My realtor's mom died at home and whispered her name. And we were looking at a house a few weeks ago, and we were talking about, you know, when somebody dies in a property, what the energy does, you know, because that energy kind of gets trapped in the 4 walls, especially when the loved ones are there. They just kind of hold that energy in that space. And I was like, she said, what happens? What do you need to do? I'm like, you need to clear that space. It needs to be cleared. Anytime somebody, you know, dies or is really sick in a home, the energy needs to be cleared. And she just started crying, and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry, because I forgot, because I'm not reading her energy, right? That her mother had passed at her house. And then I heard an echo, like a whisper echoing through the house of her name. Fast forward 3 days later, she puts on, you know, Instagram and Facebook a story about her mom passing and whispering her name, and I was like, oh. So, you know, her mom passed, I think, 8 years ago, and you can still hear her name being whispered throughout that house. The energy is still there, and it's all encapsulated into the space where she passed. And then last week, I had a client that we did a clearing on her property. I don't do that so much anymore, but she was local in San Diego. She was 20 minutes from my house, and I went to her house, and she's in an area that has a lot of paranormal activity. And she had blood rituals not herself, but for centuries there were blood rituals done on her property. And interestingly enough, it was encased in cinder block wall, and nothing was there. It was really weird. And I was just walking, and I just froze. And she was taking me to show me her gardens, her fruit citrus tree gardens, and I literally what happened here? We need to fix this. What is this? And interestingly enough, her husband wanted to put a big fire there, like a fire pit with wood fire and burn wood fire. And I was like, absolutely not. That can never happen on that property. We cleared it out, but we still don't want to do the same things that were there. And she thought it was weird because they already have a propane fire pit. And in San Diego, you don't burn wood. We're not on the East Coast. We don't have all that water. We don't do that. So that was an interesting thing that happened at a client's property. And there were spirits kind of just stuck in places. And, I was able to look at the outside of the house, and I was like, what's happening in that room? And it was her daughter's room. And she was in a really negative space, and she had a lot of negative energy in that space that we were able to clear out. And hopefully the daughter is watching my videos and clearing it out and getting her space cleared out. And most of my strange encounters have to do with negative energies. I can write volumes, probably encyclopedias of books on these. But the hardest negative energy clearings come from those that have been drug and alcohol use, typically abusers, right? I spent a lot of time in the bars when I was growing up. My dad, my grandpa, aunts and uncles, mom had one aunt, uncles were there, and I would just see when people literally died, their spirit didn't cross over. They went to the bar that they would hang out at all the time, right? In this case, it was called the Elks. And I can look at the bar and I can see the actual people sitting there while I'm sitting there drinking my soda, and I can see the spirits that were sitting there just being in that space. And then their spirits aren't happy, right? I had a neighbor whose brother was recovering. He had just come out of a treatment center for alcohol, and his brother was putting the alcohol back over the fridge because that was going to keep the brother from getting it. They're all adults, right? And the brother's stomach literally had a black energy lunge from the stomach when the alcohol was there. So sometimes it's not even about the person wanting it anymore. The energies just take over and they want that substance. So I feel like we've been talking about this for a while. This is a really long video. So if you like this video and you want to see more, let me know below. Also let me know by liking it, and I invite you to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you know when I have a new video released. For next videos to watch, I recommend What is a Spiritual Medium and Live Your Dreams, Here's How. I hope this was entertaining and that my personal shares help you in some way.